Hello and welcome back to Ask a Theorist.
Or two.
Today we are answering a question that came from Michael. Michael wants to know why I'm obsessed with the first stanza of Rhapsody in Blue. And not me. That's Michael.
Yes.
That's his phrase.
Well, Michael, I think all of us are obsessed. It's a song that has a hook, that's for sure, and it just sticks in your head. We have two different theories, one of which is true, the other of which might be completely bogus, but we're going to present it as if we believe it. And it's up to you to figure out which is which. First, let's talk about what you mean by a stanza.
The first stanza, is that like saying the first verse? The first statement of the entire...
Yeah. That would imply strophic form.
It's a rhapsody, Michael.
But we're not going to take too much time with that, picking on that. We're going to say, okay, probably you're talking about the first page. So let's talk about that rhythm.
Yeah.
Because you notice how much it's not on the beat, more than it is on the beat after it gets going. So there's something in us that like is drawn to that.
It's ahead of the beat even.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just off the beat, but it's like the melody keeps getting there before we're ready for it.
What is it outside of that that makes that a hook?
It's almost like, I don't know, a language. It's almost its own language.
Actually, I did a little research to find out, like, maybe he's saying something deeper. If it were in Morse code.
So what you're saying is that the rhythm in Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue is actually telling us something.
A secret message, which is Thiva. Ah,
so
now we understand.
George Gershwin is actually telling us Thiva, which
Thiva
could perhaps stand for something.
Maybe it was an old friend of his from high school,
And
Thiva Martin.
You know, right underneath the header, Rhapsody in Blue, it actually says for Thiva. And so...
the title's been cut off, but it's
up
in there, just above
it's
that.
Believe us. It's,
Actually says, for my dear Thiva. Well, let's talk about the melodic content. There's a lot of half steps and a lot of chromaticism, so it sticks in your head, but it's like very hard to whistle.
Perhaps I'll start this.
Okay. All
because I think I have the most convincing argument. I think we can actually explain the entire melody using the octatonic scale.
Oh, an interesting theory.
Now, for those of you wondering what is the octatonic scale, perhaps let's start there. You have, of course, your regular scale, which is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. The octatonic scale, instead of going whole, whole, half, goes whole, half, whole, half, whole,
half, whole, half.
And you arrive at the same location, as you can see by this very clear and cunning chart. There's actually two octatonic scales. You can either start with a whole step, or you can start with a half step. You'll get to the same place, half, whole, half, whole, half, whole.
It's octatonic because there are 8 instead of 7. Stravinsky used the octatonic scale.
So if you look at the pitch collection from his opening melody, da, 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 half step, whole step, half step, and then he goes down another half step. It's like he jumps to the other octatonic scale. Then he goes up a whole step, up a half step. Then he goes up another half step, which jumps him back to the other octatonic scale. I think it's actually a lot easier if you look at like the second theme in the phrase. So this is like when he gets to the E flat. I think Gershwin was just a genius, and that's why we like it. We're like, this music makes my brain happy.
All right, it's an interesting theory.
I'm telling you, it's the only theory.
I think the easier way to explain it is Gershwin was using a blues scale. Now, a blues scale, let's just start with a C major scale, okay? How are you going to make that sadder?
Sadder?
Sadder. Like blues. The blues.
Sadder.
It's Rhapsody in Blue. So first, you lower the 7th scale degree.
Okay, I'll grant you that.
Given. You don't
leading
use
tone,
a leading tone. Yeah.
There's nothing leading you anywhere in the
Okay,
blues.
all right. Second, you take the third and lower that because you got the blues.
Yeah, major to minor.
But you don't just make it minor scale. You've compromised the third. You use both the major and the minor, or you slide between the two.
I've actually seen this in like jazz charts.
Sure.
Like B flat, and then they say 3 exclamation.
Mm-hmm.
That's a compromised third chord.
How do you make it more sad? Because otherwise, like, I just kind of have a minor chord, I have a minor scale, is I mess with the fifth, all right? It started as a perfect interval. If I lower that by half a step, first I've created a tritone. Secondly, I've done the same thing that I did with the third, is I've lowered it a half step. Then I also add the flat 6, just a half step above.
Yeah, that's the very minor sound.
But I don't want to just play a scale. So there is no blues scale. There is no single blues scale. But if there were, we might say in key of C it would go C, D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G, A flat, B flat, C.
Just recapping what you said, there is no such thing as a blues scale. That's
what
you said.
Correct. That is correct, yes. And
so just to recap what you just said, you have to vary it every time based on who's...
As we do with the blues.
Okay, so your
musician.
Version, the easy way to explain it, is actually made up, is what you're saying.
It's completely made up.
Completely made up. Okay.
But everybody knows it. One of the things you'll notice that Gershwin does is he tends to go on the bright side on his way up and on the flat side on his way down.
True.
That's a pretty consistent thing.
Really, tonally, the harmonies he presents are all very basic food groups that the average listener can listen to and go, oh yeah, I get that.
Yet, he uses a lot of tritone substitution. Someday we'll talk about tritone substitution, but it's all over in Rhapsody in Blue. So you hear those chords. Did I expect 1, 4, and 5? What I got was 1 and 7 and...
Because the Petrushka chord
Yes.
is a tritone substitution. C major and an F sharp major at the same time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that moment right there should be a 4, but he does the A. Like, in your defense, it is called Rhapsody in Blue.
Blue. Mm-hmm. Not Rhapsody in Octatonic Scale.
He also repeats it all the time. How many times the main theme, like that opening riff, happens?
So if that's the stanza, it's repeated, but never quite the same each time.
Or in the same key, even.
Even the same
He
key.
modulates and modulates. The more times that you hear something, the more familiar it is to you, the more sticky it is. Just by, what is that? The mere exposure effect.
So I think it's fair to say that there are 4 elements. There would be melodic material, there would be the rhythmic material, there would be the harmonic material, and there'd be the form. All of those stick in your head for various reasons.
Yeah. So, Michael, to answer your question, why are you obsessed with the opening stanza of Rhapsody in Blue? I think we can safely say yes.
Or we might say perhaps.
Or we could even say exactly.
And we did.
So I think we pretty much explained.
I think it's been well explained.
There it is.
I'm happy.
Another one in the books.
Thank you for dialing in to Ask a Theorist.
Or 2. Comment below with your questions.